Paul being Paul, and this is an example of Paul being Paul right here. When we go to haunted houses, there are times when Paul does things to people in the haunted house that are actually highly amusing. For example, one time we went to a haunted house, and I can't recall which haunted house it was, but Paul had brought a mask, a wolf mask or something.
It was like a wolfman mask.
And he was behind a kid, a younger kid. I don't know quite how old he was. I would say, what, 14? 15,
Yeah, around that area, around the 14.
And the kid was scared going through the maze.
He was very scared of the stuff inside.
And of course, Paul is fueling the fear by saying things like, "Oh, they're going to get us," and "Oh, they're coming," and things like that.
Yep.
So
there was a point when they said, when we kind of, I don't know if they said or we just did it, it was dark. We put our hands on whoever was in front of us to guide us through because it was really dark.
yes. So Paul, unbeknownst to this kid, slips on this mask. And he's talking to the kid, and he says something to him that makes the kid turn around. And of course, the kid gets scared out of his wits because right in front of him is here's this guy in this mask.
Literally hanging on to him.
Yes.
This scary wolfman creature.
Very funny, very funny. And that also reminds me of one that we went to at the Ditka Dome in Bolingbrook. This was the first year that the Ditka Dome had done this. And we went to the haunted house, which wasn't bad at the time. The Ditka Dome is an indoor dome, one of those sports domes that's in sort of an inflated tent. So they have a lot of space inside there.
It's from Mike Ditka.
Yes, Mike Ditka, Chicago
Bears coach.
So we went there, and at the very end of the haunt, there was a guy laying on the ground pretending to be a zombie or a corpse or something, and he would crawl after you as you were walking out of the haunt. Well, he crawled after myself and Laura. We were leaving the haunt in front of Paul. Paul was a little bit behind. And he stayed there then. And it turned out he was blocking the exit. So Laura and I were outside. The next thing I hear is, "Help me! Help me!" And I turn around and I see the kid playing the zombie being dragged back into the haunt. And the next thing I see is Paul walking out. So it turns out the kid was in Paul's way, and Paul grabbed him by the legs and dragged him back into the haunt.
I did. I couldn't get around him, so I was like, well, I can't get around him. I just picked him, his legs up, and dragged him back, and he was going, "Help me, help me!"
These are the kind of things that make for very amusing haunts.
How about that time with the refrigerator?
Yes, one of the best ones. One of the best ones. Actually, there are two now. I remember another one now, a similar story. We were at the 11th hour, which is in I want to say Glendale Heights, but 11th hour. It is a pay haunt. It actually is 4 events in one. So there's a haunted corn maze, and there are 3 haunted houses. One of them being outside. One is sort of an underground cave type of thing, and one is a house, an old haunted mansion with various rooms. So we're in the haunted mansion, and we're walking through an area where we come upon a butcher, and he's talking about haggis. He's talking about, do people like haggis, various things like that, and he's talking to everybody. Well, he's in front of us, and there's a refrigerator to his left, our right, and to the right of to the left of the refrigerator is a wall, but it turns out that the wall was spring-loaded. And Paul accidentally...
This was a spring loader for the actors to get through, like a
yes, it was not for us.
Not for the, people going through the haunted house.
The idea was for the people to eventually go through the refrigerator to get to the next room. But the wall next to the refrigerator was spring-loaded. Okay. So, unbeknownst to the actor, he didn't see this happen, but I did. When we walked in with a group, Paul leaned against the wall and fell through the wall.
I did.
Okay, so
the wall.
The door closes. Now Paul's gone. All right, and nobody notices that he's not there. The actor's going through his whole spiel.
We had a pretty good sized group of people with us.
Big group.
Yeah.
Okay, and the guy's like, "Do you like haggis? Do you like haggis?" And he's got this big cleaver and he's yelling at us. He's like, "Tell me, do you like haggis?" And all of a sudden, the refrigerator door opens and here comes Paul. "Well, I do." Totally threw the guy off.
He was mad.
Then he's like, "I'll get you!" And he starts chasing Paul.
He chased me for a long ways down. The idea was for all the people to go through the refrigerator because he was supposed to scare them, and they go through and go down a corridor. I messed his speech up, and he was mad. He had that big
funniest thing.
What did he have in his hand?
It was a cleaver.
He had his big cleaver. He was chasing me down that dark corridor. I took off fast too. He didn't catch me.
Hilarious.
He went a long ways down.
That was.
I don't know what happened when he went back, but he didn't
That was
catch me.
very, very funny. That's one of the moments. And then another moment, which was actually sort of unintentionally funny, but good at the same time. We went to a haunted house, and this one was in Hickory Hills. They haven't had it recently, but it was at a local church. And it was, again, it was one of those, all the signs are bad, okay? You're in a long line, you sit and wait. It doesn't need to take that long, but it does. You get inside and they start telling you stories. And you have to listen to the whole speech before you move on to the next room.
Not even good stories.
No, dull.
Boring
Dull stories. So by the time the haunt was near the end, we didn't know it was near the end, but we're all, and everybody in our group was bored.
Yeah,
so we're all
just wanted
standing
to
there.
leave.
And we're like, oh my God. So they come to the final room, and they're building up to the final story and the scares, whatever it might be. But the scares aren't scary because the monsters are telling you a story before they actually do something. So you're just sitting there. Well, Paul, of course, is leaning up against the door, and he falls out the door. Fortunately, it was the exit door. So actually, although Paul fell out the door, which was amusing in and of itself, it also provided a quicker exit. We didn't have to listen to the rest of the stories. We were
All
able
of
to
us
get out of
left.
it.
Everybody in our group was
just
like, we don't
vacated.
care, we're done.
And it was very amusing, Paul falling out the door, because it was dark in that room, and we were like, "Ah, there's a light."
I didn't know it was a door. I just leaned against what I thought was a wall, and
Yep.
again,
There it went.
fell through.
That was another very memorable moment in our haunting history. But I have to say, I really enjoyed that happening. That was very fun.
Yeah.
Now, which reminds me of a story. Speaking of a dark maze, here's a unique Paul story. This happened at St. Pat's Haunted High School in Kankakee, Illinois, which is one that we attend every year, consistently good. It's actually in a high school, and it's multiple floors, inside and outside. The actors are great. Staffed by younger kids, some adults, but a lot of younger kids.
Pay haunt, but not expensive. We highly recommend this.
Highly recommended.
It's, you got to know it's Kankakee though, Kankakee, Illinois. So look on your map to see where it is compared to you.
Yes, it's worth a trip because there's not much around. Okay, so if you live too far from Kankakee, you might want to think twice about that. But if you're planning a trip, this is something that is worth seeing. Well, they have a dark maze at the end,
I
and
smell sulfur again. A dark maze at the end?
is your nose in the air? So they have a dark maze at the end. It's probably the one thing that I don't
small.
really like. It's not that big.
It's
of a
not
dark
that
maze,
big.
Although we have both gotten injured there.
Yeah, we have.
In the past, but they've improved the dark maze. It's sort of a 3/4 dark maze now. So it is completely dark, but the walls don't go all the way up anymore. They go 3/4 of the way up. So on an occasional strobe light or something, you can kind of get your bearings and see what's going on. Well, in any case, we were in the dark maze a couple years ago, and at the very end was a room with about 5 or 6 guys that come out of the walls at you, and they sort of surround you, and the exit's right there, but they get you before they go to the exit. So here I am. I lost Paul in the dark maze, and I come out, and these guys surround me. I thought it was very good. I come out, and I'm waiting for Paul. Well, I'm waiting, keep looking in where the guys are. No Paul. So eventually, woman, one of the workers, comes up to me and says, "Are you looking for somebody?" I said, "Yeah, I'm waiting for my friend. He seems to have gotten lost." So the woman, trying to be a good Samaritan, says to me, "Well, where is he?" I said, "Well, he's in the dark maze, and you know, he gets lost easily in these things. He kind of wanders around." And I guess
That's true.
The way that I was sort of describing Paul, this woman thought that for some reason Paul was a child. I didn't mention that he was a child, but she got this impression. So she said, "Well, can you describe him?" I said, "Well, yeah, he's about 6 feet tall, you know, kind of heavier set." And she said, "Well, how old is he?" I said, "I don't know, he's about 40 years old." So then she realized, oh.
Can you tell him that I'm always hurting myself?
Yes, I said he hurts himself quite often, and he gets lost, and I'm concerned because I haven't seen him. So of course, here they think either a lost child or someone with a developmental disability. And lo and behold, no, it's just Paul. And he did find his way out, and everything was fine. But it was highly amusing because the staff was clearly worried about Paul. Far more worried than I was, I have to admit, because I knew he'd find his way out at some point. But that's what you get for being helpful. sometimes. So that's a funny story that's uniquely Paul as well.